Spring planning is in full effect, and with it, leaders around the world are gathering to put stakes in the ground around their strategic imperatives for the year. In my role supporting these teams, I've had the opportunity to see leadership teams both nail that rollout and, of course, fall flat out of the gate. Now, what's the difference between the leadership teams that are able to effectively create and cascade and fully connect and commit their teams to a strategy? Why are some able to mobilize the army and others are left holding the bag? Well, in this week's episode of The Future of Work, we'll talk about the 3 keys to igniting your people around your strategy. Let's get into it. Over the past 15 years, I have sat in hundreds of annual and semi-annual leadership meetings as either new strategies are being rolled out or existing ones are being reinforced. And from this, I've witnessed some consistent behaviors and actions that have led to effective rollout and cascading of the strategy. And today what I want to do is I want to talk about 3 that are most often missed, but have tremendous impact on the adoption and implementation of the strategy. So first up of these 3 that are so often missed, the first one is what we call the bottom-up build. The bottom-up build, nothing slows the potential momentum and effectiveness of a strategy faster than when senior leadership goes off into a closed-door planning session for weeks or months on end with little to no impact from customers or from the people closest to the customers, and then they come out when the time is right? They bust through the doors like heroes coming to save the day, and they present their genius. It never works. Gathering together with most senior leaders of the board to then present the strategy, please, if you want buy-in on strategy, actively engage the people closest to the problems and those delivering your brand experience day in and day out. These are the individuals, these are the folks they've closed the gap. They're closest to your customers. They know what these people need. They know how to support your customers and clients at their place of highest need. Now, this doesn't mean that this is strategy by consensus, but it does mean that the people with their fingerprints on the front lines, their fingerprints are all over it, which in turn will elevate the activation of key priorities. Number 2, tell the story of the strategy. Strategic clarity starts at the top. Research shows that strategic clarity accounts for 31% of the difference between high and low performing organizations. Our job as leaders is to cast that clear and compelling vision of the future, and that vision comes to life with story. We want to connect the dots between the story of our customer's life, what they're struggling with and where they're at, and we want to tie that to how our strategy addresses those specific challenges. And I'll give you a really specific example. So I was working with a global agricultural solutions company, and over the 2 days we were together as they were laying out their strategic imperatives for the year, they went to tremendous lengths to bring to life the struggles of growers, farmers around the world and what they were facing, When it comes to each of these growers around the world trying to remain competitive in global marketplaces, Meeting the food demands of the world while also supporting the health and wellness of the planet, all while following new policies and regulations like the farm to fork strategy of the Green Deal in Europe. Tremendously challenging. Now, every one of the strategies, every conversation that was had, they were all wrapped around the growers that they serve. Every story, Facts and figures will not be remembered. As much as that hurts my heart as a researcher, people forget. But the stories and experiences, they will be remembered. So what does that look like? Maybe it's inviting customers in to speak about challenges. Maybe it's showcasing staff that are on the front lines of those challenges that your customers and clients are experiencing. We want to make the strategy the stuff of legends. And our path to doing that is by telling the story. Number 3, remember what's for breakfast. Now you might be thinking, remember what's for breakfast? What do you mean by this? Peter Drucker famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. This essentially implied that the culture of your company always determines the success, regardless of how effective your strategy may be. Drucker was essentially pointing out the importance of the human factor in our organizations. No matter how detailed or solid our strategy is, if the people executing it are not nurtured, if they're not nurturing the appropriate culture, imperatives will fail. So what do you do with this as you move through your planning process? And where do I see so many leadership teams miss? I want you to just simply be mindful of how much of your agenda is dedicated to the curation, advancement, and nurturing of your culture. How much time do we devote to celebrating and activating the values that drive and shape behaviors inside the organization? How much focus is spent on developing leadership competencies so that they can build cultures rooted in psychological safety and belonging, all which ultimately drive high performance and support the execution of said strategy? Just take a look at the agenda and say, we've got 2 days of time together. Where is culture in this story arc? And how much time are we devoting to supporting our leaders to develop their skills and competencies to be able to go out and shepherd and curate high performance cultures? So again, top 3 things as you move through planning for this year to activate and cascade that strategy throughout the organization. Number 1, remember, bottom-up build. Even if it's just simple focus groups, some light sampling, we want people closest to the customer to feel like they have their fingerprints on the strategy. If we've been in closed door meetings with a small handful of executives for months on end planning strategy, red flag goes up. Number 2, tell the story of the strategy. Facts and figures don't get remembered. Bring to life to the center, customer centricity in your storytelling to bring that strategy to life. And last but not least, remember what's for breakfast. Where does culture fit in our time together as we go lay out our strategy for the year ahead?